Medicare for all solves that problem. And I understand there are a lot of politicians who say, oh, it's just not possible, we just can't do it. What they're really telling you is they just won't fight for it.
I think we should be the party that keeps what's working and fixes what's broken.
This opioid addiction in our country, we in cities like mine have been seeing how we've tried to arrest our way out of addiction for too long.
Watching that image of Oscar and his daughter Valeria is heartbreaking. It should also piss us all off when somebody comes across the border not to criminalize desperation, to treat that as a civil violation.
For all the American citizens out there who feel you're falling behind, who feel the American dream's not working for you, the immigrants didn't do that to you.
If you go to Guantanamo Bay, there are terrorists that are held that get better health care than those kids that have tried to cross the border in the United States.
If you need a license to drive a car, you should need a license to buy and own a firearm.
We are the first generation to feel the sting of climate change, and we are the last that can do something about it.
Now we are a month away from the Iranians who claim now that they're going to blow the caps on enriching uranium. And this president is literally every single day 10 minutes away from going to war, one tweet away from going to war.
If there was an attack against the American, our troops, then there would have to be a response.
We must begin impeachment now so that we have the facts and the truth, and we follow them as far as they go and as high up as they reach, and we save this democracy.
All right, so you missed last night's debate. There you have it. That's a look at the first part of the Democratic debate last night. As I mentioned earlier in the hour, 10 candidates sparred for 2 hours on NBC News. And then tonight, another 10 candidates will take the stage. You'll hear from current Democratic frontrunner, former Vice President Joe Biden, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, and then 8 others vying to be the candidate to take on President Trump. So for more on what we can expect from tonight's debate, we are joined by CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett. I sort of feel badly because I said, you know, here are the 2 front runners and then there's everyone else.
Well, then everyone else, right. And Andrew Yang, Kamala Harris, they would like to say, wait a minute, we're not part of the also-rans.
Right.
And that's really what this process is about. Where are you and where can you expect to be in a month? Because if you can't take advantage of this national platform and all the media attention it's attracting, you're in bad shape. Now, there's somebody who wasn't on the stage yesterday, Steve Bullock, the governor of Montana. He had a town hall in Iowa. He's going to have a town hall today in New Hampshire. That's not a bad strategic approach. You're not on the stage, but you're in the 2 early states trying to figure out some way to get in the local media because you're not going to be in the national media. So everyone is trying to figure out how to take this and make it, importantly, a springboard moment.
Yeah, because because you didn't make the cut for the debate, and I think
you got to figure something else out.
Doesn't mean you're totally going to shut down your operation.
And just real quickly, how did this 20 get sorted out? Well, there's a polling mechanism. You had to have 1% in 3 polls, and you had to have 65,000 unique donors from 20 different states. That was the threshold. And now how do they choose them? They chose the lineup for each night and where you were placed entirely by lottery. So it's not to tell people up front who's the front runner. Who's the one? Because that's what Republicans did. Donald Trump was always front and center because he was always the poll leader.
Right.
So that they're trying, the Democratic National Committee, to mix this up as much as possible. And also, the Democratic National Committee has this very great sense that there were accusations from the Bernie Sanders camp in 2016 that it put the thumb of the party on the scale for Hillary. And it is trying to do everything it can to wash away any sense that that might or might not be true. So that's why this format is the way it is. That's why it's 2 nights. That's why there's a lottery to decide who gets what night, et cetera, et cetera.
But the way it's shaking out is it seems like most of the heavy hitters are tonight, the ones that are
right, but Elizabeth Warren would say, I was the heavy hitter last night, and first night is probably going to draw the larger of the 2 nights because, let's be honest, 2 nights of this, that's a lot of commitment.
Right.
Even political activists might not find within themselves the energy to watch the second full 2 hours. So for Elizabeth Warren, 5 questions in the first 40 minutes, whether that was intentional or not, it gave the impression that she was the most important person on the stage. And for her campaign, you got to love that reality. That, hey, I got 5 questions. I must be the dominant figure on the stage.
Yeah, there were a number of questions specifically about her policies and having candidates react to that.
Now, she kind of disappeared in the second hour.
Right.
I think she was taking notes on how everyone else was doing. So she said, I got my first hour. I'm good. I'll watch.
So speaking of taking notes, Major Garrett, Is there a tactical advantage to being on night 2? I know you mentioned that maybe some people won't watch, but hey, you get to watch the first debate and see how it shakes out.
There is, in the sense that if you need to study others and decide exactly how much time there's going to be, how aggressive the moderators are going to be about holding you to time, when to take that moment in your either the first answer you get or in your summation, when do you drop that most important line that summarizes your whole campaign, you get a better feel for it having watched the first one go. There is that assistance. But politics is very simple. You know what your message is, you deliver it, and then you capitalize on it. Those who do succeed, those who don't fail.
Okay, let us talk about the leader in the polls right now, former Vice President Joe Biden. So, what's his strategy here? Often, when you're already ahead, you can only serve to do damage to yourself if there's a misstep. I don't know if other candidates are going to sort of choose to attack him or go the route that they did last night, which is just focus on the issues. But what does he do?
So I think the first thing that Joe Biden has to ask himself is, why did no one talk about him last night? Why were there not even glancing references to maybe I'm part of a new generation or I have a new idea of what bipartisanship means, not this old idea, whisper, segregationist idea of bipartisanship. Nothing like that at all. Why was he ignored? Is that because other Democrats have concluded that he's having problems and they're not going to interfere with that self-made problem? Or have they concluded, Joe Biden's leading now, but he's not going to be leading next year, and I don't even need to focus on him? If I'm Joe Biden, I want to try to figure out what the answer to that is. And then take tonight and use it to look not cautious, to look as if this is not a coronation, that you have something to fight for and ideas that will back up that fight. Because if anything happened in that first hour last night, Elizabeth Warren, because she got 5 questions, I think communicated 2 things. I have plans and I'm willing to fight. Are those the plans the Democrats want? Is that the fight they want to take on? I don't know. We'll find out. But I think Joe Biden needs to say, I've got energy, this is not a coronation, here are my plans, and here's my fight.
So what about Bernie Sanders? The last election, he was the progressive. He was the left. Now he doesn't look so progressive anymore. Also, just like Joe Biden, he's been around Washington for a mighty long time. He's got a record that he has to sort of answer to.
So Bernie Sanders benefited in 2015 and 2016 from being the alternative within the Democratic Party to the Clinton dynasty. The Clinton dynasty is not part of this conversation anymore. And Bernie Sanders looks around and says, wait a minute, I had all these ideas. They're now, if not mainstream, certainly closer to the orthodoxy than they were 4 years ago. Why don't I get any credit for that? What, you're all just sort of intellectually thieving from me, and I get no political benefit out of that? So I think it's a struggling time for him. He's okay in the polls, but he's not great. And there's a sense that, like you said, he's kind of old news. There's got to be something about him tonight that feels a little bit fresher and a little bit more not conflicted or angry about not getting enough credit, but taking it to the next step. I think that's the interesting strategic place that the Sanders campaign finds itself.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. We are hearing a lot of sort of progressive ideas from the Democratic Party. But, after you win the primary, you got to go on and win the general election.
Exactly.
Are you going to have to stay married to those ideas and still try to convince the rest of the nation to sort of sign on? I could talk to you for the rest of the show.
I'll be back.
But I would get fired. Will you?
Yes.
Okay, good. I look forward to it, Major. Thank you.
I'll be here. Thanks.
CBSN will have live updates all night during part 2 of the debate. Our coverage begins at 8 p.m. Eastern. When the debate wraps up at 11 p.m., we'll have a comprehensive post-debate show. We want you to understand what you just watched. We're going to be featuring CBS News correspondents and contributors, and of course, a team from our local Matters reporters. They're spread out all across the country.